Welcome back to the Champion Forum podcast, everyone. Today on the show, we are joined by Chris Cooper. This guy is a global voice in leadership, culture, and business elevation. I had a chance to connect with him on a couple of occasions, and I can tell you the message that he has for the world, it is relevant and it is for right now. Chris is a leadership and business elevation strategist. He's a speaker. He's a broadcaster. He's an author whose work over 3 decades has shaped how leaders and teams perform all over the globe. Chris began his career working with major international brands like Mars and United Biscuits, gaining some very, very deep enterprise experience across all levels of departments and senior levels of leadership. He co-founded a very, very successful consultancy that grew tremendously in just 3 short years, and then followed his passion to help people and organizations realize their fullest potential. He's probably best known as the host of the Business Elevation Show on Voice America, which I had the privilege to be on. This is one of the world's most accessed business programs with a global reach spanning more than 50 countries. Chris is also the co-author of The Power to Get Things Done, whether you feel like it or not, published by Penguin Random House's Peregrine imprint. And he has contributed to other international bestsellers as well. He's the founder of the Elevation Collective, which is an international community of wise, very heart-led leaders committed to doing good in the world. Beyond his professional life, Chris lives in the UK with his wife and his 2 teenage sons. He loves music, loves the outdoors, and even once completed one of Scotland's toughest endurance events for charity. This guy is getting a lot done. So you are in for a treat today, listener, as we dive deep into leadership, we dive deep into purpose and culture and what it really takes to elevate others and yourself.
This is the Champion Forum podcast with Jeff Hancher, the forum for leaders, champions, and dreamers.
Chris, welcome to the show. I just spent some time teeing up your body of work to the listener, and I just don't feel like a 50-second intro does it any justice. You and I have had a chance to connect on a couple of occasions, and we're introduced by a mutual friend, and I have to tell you, man, I'm grateful for the work that you're doing to bring good to the world through leadership. So welcome to the Champion Forum podcast.
Well, thank you, Jeff. And could you introduce me on every occasion I'm introduced, please? Because that was beautiful.
Yes.
Thank you. Very kind.
Yeah, sometimes those intros, they have you sit reflecting like, wow, yeah, we're doing some things, right? So, yeah, we appreciate it. You know, you're one of the podcast pioneers. You were doing this before it became trendy, and I'm curious, what prompted you, however many years ago it was, to kind of jump onto this podcast thing? Was it visionary? Did you see it? And maybe tell the audience how long you've been doing it and what inspired that.
Sure. Yeah, I've been doing it since September 2011. So wow. I think we're 14 coming up 14 and a half years now. And the reason I did it was in some ways a philanthropical reason, that I felt fortunate in terms of where I was at in my life, and I wondered how could I contribute to a better world. And I decided that actually communication was a good way. And what had happened is I had quite a number of coaching clients at the time, and I started to build a little community out of them. And I would interview people with this community. At the time, we did it over the telephone. We didn't have the things like the technology we have today.
Wow.
And people would come and listen to that. And I put some of those recordings on my website, and Voice America contacted me and said, "We like you in English accent. Would you talk about doing a show?" And I remember I'd actually brought I got an amazing guest, and I promoted it really well, and 3 people turned up. And I thought, there's got to be an easier way than doing this. I mean, there's got to be an easier way. And unfortunately, with the opportunity to do a podcast, within the first few months, we hit a channel record for the most listeners. It was based upon the guests that I happened to know and invite. So I think we had something like 6,500 listeners in the first month, which was, for a new podcast, was at the time was good. So I thought, this is really good. This and I decided actually it was my way of being philanthropical. That actually, if I could bring interesting people that are doing good, do their leadership and their work, and share them with people. Maybe it wasn't about the money. Maybe that would make a little ripple effect, and I get to know a few interesting folk in the process.
Well, you definitely get the award for consistency, no question about that. And my goodness, the podcasting space has changed quite a bit. I started in early 2019, and I thought, I'm one of the ones that has stuck around a while. But then I meet Chris Cooper, and it's like, wow, this guy. Man, he has been on the journey quite some time. Speaking of journeys, you shared a little bit whenever we connected offline. I guess it's been about a month ago about your journey. And man, we all have a story. You have an amazing story, Chris. Maybe tell us a little bit about your journey to get to where you are today. Were there moments that stood out to you that gave you purpose? And maybe give us a little bit of the backstory that got you from childhood clear up into working for these amazing brands and doing what you're doing now.
Thank you. Well, I'll go back to my hometown, which was a steel town called Scunthorpe in the north of England. And my father was a steel worker. My grandfather was a steel worker. And I think the expectation was that I would probably be a steel worker as well, because that's what lads did in that town. And I'll always remember I was about 13 or 14, and my dad took me to the place that he worked. And I remember being quite excited about that. And we walk around, and it's dark and it's noisy. There's molten metal flying around. We saw the train where, unfortunately, due to health and safety issues, my dad had to help pull body parts from under the train because all these stories happened. And it was a tough place, a tough place to work. And I remember Dad on strike when the miners went on strike. The steel workers went out too, and the money being tight. And on this particular experience, there was myself and lots of other kids with mostly boys with their fathers, and we went into a room afterwards, and a very tall man walked in, and my dad kind of straightened up, and he walked straight over to me, and he said, sorry, not Chris, he didn't know my name, he said, "Son," he said, "when you're older, are you going to come and work for us?" I said, "You must be joking." And my dad was absolutely fuming because on the way home he explained this was actually the CEO of British Steel.
Wow.
And my dad said, "You're never going to get a job," and he was really frustrated with me. But when he calmed down, apparently he recalled that I said, "But Dad, you don't like it there. Why would I want to work there?" Yeah. And I think what that moment did for me is it probably made me realise that actually there was more for me than Scunthorpe and the steelworks. I don't disrespect anybody who went to work in the steelworks. Hard work. I did actually end up doing some work as a student there. Tough work. But what I think I wanted to do and was built into me was that I wanted to ultimately help people to realise their potential, but also to help organisations to create cultures where people really loved to work, where they thrived, where it was safe, where everybody was appreciated, where it was one team and one tribe. And I think that's been inbuilt in me through my northern roots.
Man, I will tell you, I come from a steel town as well, Pittsburgh. Our football team is the Steelers, of course. But I will tell you, out of exposure to challenges and adversity, it can really forge a path for people. And, I think about what the world would be like if Chris Cooper wasn't doing what he's doing today. And I agree with you. Like, being in a steel mill is an honest living, and we need those people. We need that industry. But I think of how, like, maybe some of what you were exposed to helped forge the future for you. And here you are now making an impact globally even. So thanks for sharing this story. As you know, we've talked about this. We have a mutual heart for leadership and helping leaders make bigger impact, helping people reach their potential. You have interviewed leaders all over the world. You have been in leadership yourself. In your opinion, what have been the significant points in your leadership journey that you can share with our audience? These might be these milestone moments that you say, man, these were the transformational leadership moments for me. Is there anything that stands out to you, Chris?
I think there's a few things. I think, as you mentioned, that I worked for Rank Xerox as a student for a little bit, and I got the opportunity to go to Australia and work for them in my summer holiday, which was really eye-opening for me and got me to see business from a different perspective. And I travelled to different parts of Australia while I was doing that and got to see leaders in action. I then went to United Business, so I went into the motor industry, and the company collapsed. So I experienced redundancy and saw lots of people losing their jobs, including myself, 3,000 of us on one particular day. But I think my the leadership experiences really came when I worked for Mars, the global confectionery firm, and I got to see what really great leadership was all about, and I got to see people that it was so hard to get in. I think I had 7 stages to get in, and having been the only one who got in that year, I think, who was unemployed at the time, it was quite a big deal. But the people that I met there, I felt I could learn from each of them, and that was great. I had a boss called Alan Ravey, actually, who's sadly no longer here, and he was brilliant because what he did was he brought a real sense of humour to his leadership as well, and he really inspired me. And we had the most amazing team, and we would because we were out selling. And we're business development managers in a territory, helping make sure we got vending machines and confectionery in the right places, and we had teams of merchandisers in the areas as well. But it was quite an isolating sort of job, and we kind of encouraged a culture where we called each other, we supported each other, and he had this amazing sense of humour. I remember being a bit cheeky in a meeting, and he suddenly looked at me and he said, "Chris," he said, "you don't say a lot, but when you do, it's a bloody waste of time." And it was just like, you could get away with saying, and he didn't actually use the bloody, he used a stronger word than that. But he just knew how to just carefully keep you in your place and carefully manage you. And then I think I also had a boss that I thought I didn't like, was completely micromanaged me. I tried to, and we ended up in a confrontation, and it led me to actually leave the company. When a recruitment consultant called. Interestingly, she was moved aside, and the company came back to me and said, "Actually, would you come back and would you consider her job?" So that was quite interesting. But I think I learned about leadership when somebody's just trying to smother you and trying to make a not empowering you. So I think I learnt about styles there. My time, one of the jobs I particularly loved was when I was at United Biscuits, and I'd been brought in. I'd worked in sales, marketing, procurement. I've worked in HR and logistics in my career, and what this role was, I went in to help them develop a strategy to procure all of their marketing across the company. Initially in McVitie's, but within a few months that grew to me taking responsibility for teams in France, Belgium, Holland, Spain, Poland, Finland, and it was wonderful because I got to go to visit these countries and see the different cultural leadership styles, and they were quite different. In France, for example, in the UK, we could challenge our leaders to a certain extent. In France, no, they were completely revered. And I would go, my team in Paris were always shocked because I would just walk straight into the managing director's office, sit on the corner of his desk and have a real good chat with him, and he'd be pleased to see me. And they were like, "How can you do that?" To him, he was so high up the hierarchy, they couldn't imagine that. But actually, he was just a human being.
Right.
So that was really fascinating. And then my last corporate job was leading the logistics, quality and forecasting for 5,500 pubs and restaurants, which was really, really complex. I remember getting a call. Somebody was angry that we had 5,500 pubs, that 10 pubs had their beer late. So they came up to give me, they bypassed my team, came to give me a really hard time. And then they made a complaint about me. because they said I was a bit dismissive, and the response by my boss was, "Did you realise that that morning he just made 3 people redundant? We've made him restructure the team before he started. Give the guy a break," kind of thing. And that was good, to realise that people had my back.
Yes.
We were the biggest client for Carlsberg Tetley. You might have heard of them in Europe. So we were very significant. Balancing those relationships, and I suppose leading a team of people with different skills, capabilities, and talents. Realizing that I realized I wasn't detailed enough really to do that job if I got into the micro elements of it. But what I was good at was the bigger picture, and I was good with the people. So what I needed is different people in that team who could help me and support me, and that launched me into setting up a procurement consultancy, which I did with some partners, and that grew very, very quickly. We ended up with some very big clients, managing, sort of reviewing millions of pounds of spend with them. But there was a realization after 3 years. We were making a lot of money, but my passion was actually about developing people. And I really missed. I loved that leadership. I loved being around people. So I made a huge decision and sold my share, partly because I wanted to be around for my family as they were growing up, because I got a young family at the time, and went out into my own work as a consultant, a coach, a facilitator, and that's where I've been.
Well, we're glad that you did. Wow, and you have this. You've had this opportunity to see both sides. I mean, look, sharing what you just shared, it's evident that you have a body of work, that you've been in the leadership chair. You've seen diverse styles of leadership literally all over the world. So you've had good leaders, you've had not so good leaders. All of these things begin to shape you as a thought leader. And that was internal. Externally, you have been exposed to leaders all over the world. I had the honor of being on your podcast, the Business Elevation Show. You've hosted over 625 interviews. You've interviewed over 500 leaders. That's a lot of different style. That's a lot of different exposure. That's a lot of different philosophy on leadership and thought on leadership. Chris, are there any patterns that you've seen in the leaders that you've been exposed to that have impressed you the most? Is there a common thread that you would share with our listener of the things that really has stood out to you that make great, impactful leadership?
I think for me, the leaders that I'm always the most inspired by are those who actually really do care about making a positive impact and doing good as well. So they could be running big organizations, or they might be leaders running not for profits or big projects or initiatives. But I think the ones that most inspire me are the ones that have got real heart, and the ones that care to actually leave a positive legacy. So I really like those leaders, and I think I like the leaders who are also kind of emotionally intelligent around people. It's not all just about the money and about the numbers. They care about the people, about their communities, about making a difference. Because I think Jeff, it's very, at the moment we feel like we're kind of quite a dark place in history. We're in a real kind of metamorphosis at the moment, and some of those leaders that we might see have behaviours and characteristics that we probably wouldn't want in our children.
Right.
What I care about is, and was why I built a community of some of the exceptional people I've interviewed, the Elevation Collective, is that what I've invited into that community are people who I feel are doing amazing work, but also have a purpose that involves good at heart. So I would say that they're people who are very purpose driven. They come from all sorts of different backgrounds. They care about making a difference. So I'll give you some examples. So in examples, one of my guest, Shay Hulsher, she's got a beauty brand called Privé, and what she cares about is that out there in the world there's a lot of shampoo and beauty products that are not good for your, that you take some of those chemicals into your bloodstream through putting them on your skin. So she really cares about that. So she's created a sustainable beauty brand, but also she has very inspired to do good. So a percentage of that money goes towards helping women who are in need, a percentage of that revenue. She also happens to be a Porsche racing driver, and she's got the most beautiful relationship with one of the top female racing driver. She's a part of my community. So she's actually linked in with her brand. She's linked in sustainability. She's linked in contributing to good, and she has this beautiful. I mean, they just adore each other. The Sabre Cook, who's the female racing driver, they adore each other, and it's like so synergistic, and it's beautiful. And then other people in the community, my community, for example, Tessa White. So Tessa's was with the Job Doctor. She's got over 1 million followers on social media. So she decided actually she really wanted to help people, young people, with their career success, and she's brilliant at it. So she's just taken a role on as leading the chair of a major university in Utah. She leads that, and that's going to lead to the opportunity to be able to support. I think there's 35,000 people in that university. Another of our community members, Molly Bedingfield, she's a charity called Global Angels, and she has just tirelessly worked to help people who are in communities that are disadvantaged. So we just took a party out to Kenya to her project out there, and what she's doing is amazing. They're building wells. They're educating people on permaculture. They're just supporting about 30 people in this eco farm. They're all going out and they're helping in a ripple effect, helping the local communities. And she's giving. So I think what I love is when I meet people who care about something bigger than themselves. They care about, it's not about, filling their bank account to the highest level, because they can't take that with them. One day it's about doing good and creating a ripple. And those are the people I'm most inspired by, really.
Man, that's beautiful. And I would say, whatever your leadership impact is, like, you have an opportunity. Really, at the end of the day, leadership is about elevating others. And I love that you've taken this path to build a community around people that are going above and beyond, quite frankly, using certainly their leadership influence, but doing good in the world. And I love that you're promoting it, because to your point, like, this leadership journey isn't always easy. And I'm certain that there are leaders listening that are frustrated, they're challenged. Stay in the fight, leader, because, I mean, we're hearing what Chris is saying is, man, if you can get the tools and equip yourself, and if you truly have the heart to serve people, man, there's some people doing some good things, and let that inspire you, because at the hand of leadership is what creates transformation. And so thanks for sharing that, Chris. I remember our first conversation, Chris, and, the goal was, we were going to be talking about feedback in my book. And I was just, I had researched you a little bit, and I felt so compelled. And I know the work's been out for a little while, but I wanted to learn more about this book that you wrote, The Power to Get Things Done. I love the subtitle, which is Whether You Feel Like It or Not. I mean, how many listeners can raise their hand and say, "Look,"
very corny, but I just happen to have a corny.
There it is. There it is. If you're watching on YouTube, that is the book. But I will tell you, the title alone stopped me in my tracks. As a business coach, as a consultant, getting things done is easier said than done. Why? Because our motivation wanes. Outside forces are coming in. Everybody knows what they need to do. But sometimes, man, there are so many things that are holding us back. And I wanted to get your thoughts behind this. I know that in understanding the book and looking into the book myself, you've said that motivation is unreliable. And I love that. I love that quote. But you go on to say that motivation is not something that we should depend on to drive results. So here's my question on that, because I think that is so profound. Why do so many people still rely on motivation? And what should we lean on instead if we want this consistency in our life?
Okay, I think what we do is we often feel motivation around things that are loud. So urgency is loud, but importance is usually very quiet. So that's kind of an interesting thought. So urgency is loud and importance is quiet. Is where we might feel our motivation is when we've got a deadline, of something that's very urgent. But actually, those things that are really important that need to be done often don't get done. And we if we've got lots of time, we wait for that motivation to kick in. But the reality is that often what we have to do to really feel motivation is to get into action, and we get into action first, and to make some decisions about maybe 2 or 3 things that are really important, and focus in on them, and actually be prepared to say no to some of those things that are, creating all of the noise. So I think the thing with motivation is at certain times, and there's probably times for you when you feel a bit flat and you don't feel very motivated, and though that's almost wasted time in many respects, because if you could conjure up motivation and get on with something, you would. And the way that I think to do it is that you have to create systems and processes that mean that you have to act whether you feel like it or not. You get very clear about what is important, and not too many things. And then what you do is you create these systems and processes that mean you have to feel motivated. You feel that sense of urgency around something that's important. I don't know about you, Jeff, but I wrote the book and I collaborated with Dr. Stephen Levinson, who was a clinical psychologist from Minnesota, and he for some reason he heard about me online and he reached out. And the thing is that I'd learned that a couple of years into my business, I'd had about 18 months, I'd gone really well. I'd brought some clients that I knew immediately who could benefit from my services. And then a couple of years in, I got two amazing big projects, and suddenly, for reasons beyond my control, they didn't happen. And I felt almost like I was on my knees. And of course, what I'd done, I'd come out of a setting where I had lots of accountability. I'd had appraisals, and in the corporate world, appraisals. I had line managers in board meetings. There was finger pointing. There was always that challenge. And you know what? I got really fed up with it. And I wanted to be free in my own business and not have any of it. But actually, what I realized is why I'd performed highly in that environment was because those systems were in place. They were in place there for me to move things forward and achieve, whether I felt like it or not. So what the book partly is about is a realization you've got, unfortunately, you've got to put quite a lot of those in place again. If you just go by continuously by just intuition, and you just go, you have no rules, and you often don't make the speed of progress that you want to make. So that was a real insight for me.
That's so insightful. I mean, it's speaking to me right now, because I spent 25 years in the corporate world, and now, I'm out on my own as an entrepreneur. And I remember the machine that was the large corporation. And it's like there's so much momentum because of systems and processes that, sometimes whether you feel like it or not, the systems and processes are moving you forward. Yes. As an entrepreneur, especially the founder, look, if you're having an off day, your motivation just really isn't there, you can hit the pause button on the process. Yeah. You can hit the pause button on the system. So I think there is something to be said about this, of getting structure around you, even if it's in the smallest of settings. And I think the word that you used, which is like momentum, momentum can carry you when motivation isn't there. And so sometimes getting started to get momentum is tough. But I think once you have some momentum, sometimes the motivation follows. But anybody that's listening knows, like, nobody wakes up motivated every single day. No. Then it has to come to consistency. We applauded your consistency of doing your show since 2011. Most people aren't even close to doing anything like that. And if I were to ask you, Chris, did you jump onto every episode very excited, fired up, motivated? Probably not. But the mission that you were on was bigger than your motivation. And so that's a conversation maybe that we have, is you talk in the book about identifying what truly matters, which, Simon Sinek tells us people will work for their what, but they'll die for their why. Yeah. For the leader and the entrepreneur who feel overwhelmed, maybe pulled in many directions, what's the simplest way to clarify what is actually important versus what just feels urgent? Because there's always more to do than time. How do we get to that bullseye?
Yeah, I think what we have to do is we maybe have to, take a piece of paper and write down some of those things that we're doing, and think, other more effective ways to either delegate some of those tasks. Could we bring other people in to help us to do that? And actually, what are the core maybe 3 things that we want to do? That's that are important to us. So, it could be, you might have a couple of goals around work. You might have some other intentions around that sit outside of life. So, for me at the moment, we're building this beautiful, sustainable community around the Elevation Collective. So, clearly one of the things that is important to me is to bring in the right people. And the lovely thing about that is, rather than many other organisations like that, I can be discerning around character. So, I'm looking for people who are wise and heartfelt, but also, really do care. And I'm not looking for people with big ego. And so, so that's really, so I've got a focus around that, and a focus around continually elevating the value within the collective for people. And then I've got some other goals. So one of my goals, I love music. So I play the electric guitar, and I've been played live a few times recently, and I've had level of feedback that's kind of surprised me. So I put it out. I thought, wouldn't it be fun to really get really good at it, and how far could I take it? So I initially created a little plan, a 2.5-year plan to play a live show on my 60th birthday and blow everybody away with it. What's actually materialised is that there's an amazing local rock band. They're fantastic, a rock pop band, and it turned out they were advertising for a new guitar player. So I only a couple of hours before the deadline, when I heard about it, I sent them a video, and they were about to hire somebody. They put that on hold, and I've got an audition on the 8th of January. But for the 8th of January, what I have to... So this is a great example for getting things done. So because I've got a deadline at the 8th of January, and I've only had it of a month, and they've actually given me a challenge that they need me to play 10 songs with them.
Wow.
To learn 10 songs in a month, that's high. 9 days ago, I got the information about this, and I've learned 5 since then that I can play with them. So
wow.
It's helped. That situation has done the heavy lifting. Whether I get the get the gigs or not and join them or not, I've learned 5 new tracks. I'll know 10 new tracks at least by the 8th of January. That'll have taken my guitar playing to another level. Which is brilliant, and if that doesn't work out, something else will. But I think with accountability is really important, and community can help with that as well. Is to create situations where you have to act, whether you feel like something. I might learn 6 songs in a year if I didn't have something. It's the same with my endurance event. With the Kindrocket quadrathlon I did up in Scotland. I committed to that 9 months before. I couldn't do front crawl. I had to do a mile swim across freezing Loch Tay with front crawl. So I had to do 4 events over the day, and I had to train for that. Now, what got me over the line was I had dinner with somebody who come third in a previous year, and I asked them for this. I said, "What's the one tip you can give me that could help me to do well and complete this, because actually just completion's a real great thing." He said, "Chris, it's easy." And I thought, "Oh, that's good." That's good. So it's easy to swim a mile. Then I had 15 miles over 7 mountains over 1,000 meters each, and a 7-mile kayak and a 36-mile hilly bike ride. So that's good. It's easy. So he said, "Yeah." He said, "Chris, if you train consistently between now and then, it'll be the best day of your life." Wow. Great. If you don't, it'll be the worst. that mantra got me every day. That mantra got me motivated. When I had to get up to the swimming pool and get up at 5 o'clock in the morning before work, I would replay that. If I don't do this, it's going to be the worst day of my life.
Yeah.
If I do, it'll be the best day. And then what you realise, the event itself becomes the reward for the effort. So yes. So you have days when you're up and down, and it's the same with the my kind of guitar playing, I guess. But ideally, if you're doing things you love, it helps. But if you're doing things that you have to do that you don't love, create systems that mean that you're going to act. So, put in presentations into the diary, put in a review with somebody that you really trust. Or if it's about your people, you put in a review into their diary when you're going to review progress on the project, and you create a system that means that they or you have to move forward. And then the other thing to think about always is each day is what I'm doing going to make a difference? Is it taking me towards my goal, my end goal, where I want to? Is it taking me towards a sustainable collective, or a higher level of value for our members, or is it taking me towards the 10 guitar tracks that I need to? And then decide. And if there are things coming in that don't take you there, say thank you very much.
Yes.
We have to learn to say no.
Yes. Man, that's good. I love those examples too, Chris, because, once you sign up for the audition, you're committed.
Yeah.
And so now it's like I need to learn these 10 tracks, because I love what you said about like putting something in the calendar that kind of forces you to show up. Yes. Hey, I'm going to sign up for this event, this race. Okay, well, it's already on the calendar. So now I have to show up. I have to prepare. I love the perspective too about this thought of maybe you don't get after the audition, maybe they don't choose you. But here's this beautiful thought of, but I'm going to know 10 more songs, and that will propel me into a future opportunity. By the way, you got to keep us posted on this. I want to see you up on the stage, just rocking it out with this band. Like, we're looking forward to hearing that. But I do think, these are the things that drive us, is these internal systems, putting things on the calendar that stretch us. We probably see this in our personal life and don't even realize it. What came to my mind when you were saying this, and this is the most micro example, is if, my family books a vacation to the beach, in July. And, winter's been a little long. I got a little lazy working out. I put on a few pounds. I know the beach is coming. And so what do? That starts to motivate me on, you know what? I gotta figure this out. I gotta get this together. There's an impending event that is coming that forces action. And I absolutely love this philosophy. But look, even beyond this kind of thing, Chris, one of the biggest, and maybe I'm speaking for myself here, one of the biggest obstacles to taking action is internal resistance. Things like fear, yes. Things like perfectionism. I'll raise my hand to this one, overthinking. I'm an overthinker. What if it goes wrong? What if this? What if that? What have you found to be the most effective way to overcome this resistance that always creeps up in the moment when you least feel like taking action? How do we overcome these kind of internal resistors? Yeah,
I think I would tend to. Sometimes I look to the end of my life and imagine myself sitting there in a chair, maybe with a glass of wine or a cup of tea or something, and my favourite biscuits, and looking back and reflecting and thinking, I want to be sitting there thinking I've done well, and I've taken every opportunity to make a difference during my lifetime. So sometimes that kind of helps. But fear really is just, it's been described as false evidence appearing real. 95% of things you worry about don't happen. So be mindful of that. But I think the simplest thing is, if it's feels like a huge leap to do something, just make yourself sit down for 5 minutes and take a small step towards it, because it's lots of little small steps that take us towards the big picture. I always love this. I'm not really into the sort of lot of the big self-development kind of gurus, but there was a quote by, I think it was Tony Robbins, that I liked, and it was that what we do is we overestimate what we can achieve in a year, but considerably underestimate what we can achieve in 10. So if there's something that you really want to achieve, then it could give you, but it feels too much at the moment. Take some small steps and give yourself a bit of a time gap to achieve it. Yeah. I found a big thing for me when I was 28. I sat down and I was at a low point in my life, and I just bought a flat in London. I was broke, which turned out to be a great investment. I sold it 3 years ago. But I sat down on a broken table that I borrowed from somebody, and I decided to write down what life would be like at 40. And I thought, I'm never going to be that old, so I can write ridiculous things down. And I wrote down I wanted a beautiful home in the country, I wanted a lovely wife, I wanted financial freedom, my own company, I wanted to play the electric guitar and blow everybody away. I wanted a dog called Barney, and I actually at my 40th birthday I read that out in that house that I'd imagined, married to, and it said brackets, some wife who doesn't cheat on me, because I'd had an experience of that in a previous relationship. The only thing that didn't arrive was a dog. He arrived 3 weeks later. But actually, over that 12-year time period, it was remarkable what had happened and how close it was to what I had visualized and felt was almost impossible. So I would just say, take small steps towards where you want to progress. If you're feeling really nervous about something, try things. But actually, what is also interesting, like the podcast, I was nervous for my first 3, and then my fear went away. And actually the build up, if I hadn't have done it, I wouldn't have all these, I wouldn't know you, Jeff.
That's true.
And the gift that knowing somebody like you brings to my life is immeasurable. So take some small steps, give things a go, think about the long term, look back and think, actually, do I want my life to be, do I really want to make something with my life? We're 30 trillion cells or whatever we are. We're amazing. We're like this amazing city that communicates internally, and you're absolutely incredible. Why not make the most of being here while we are here?
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. I love what you said about thinking about yourself as an old man. What is it going to look like for me to say I've lived a life that was lived well? We just celebrated our 6-year anniversary on the 13th of December of me launching from corporate and launching this company. I hope that I've been pretty vulnerable on this journey, but when you talked about the first podcast episode, it made me think of mine. There was only 2 people in the room and I was trembling. I mean, you could hear it in my voice. I was so nervous, leaving that corporate job, so nervous. There's still days today that I'm like, oh my gosh, are we ever going to get to said milestone or to whatever it might be? But something you said, which is something I try to do as well, is to think fast forward. Am I on the path to go towards the impact that I want to make in the earth? And this transcends, what's just in it for me. But I love the visionary piece of this, because when you have a big vision, I feel, Chris, it can push you through some resistance internally. The internal resistance is a common ground for everybody that's ever going to do anything significant in life. Imposter syndrome, fear, feeling disqualified, afraid the money's not going to be there, whatever that might be. But I love what you said, and I think it's so profound, is that can you fast forward and visualize what life would look like? And I think a nice twist on that too is, what if you don't push through? What's the cost of not doing it? Because there's a cost of doing it, certainly a risk, but there's also maybe perhaps a heavier cost of not doing it. And so beautifully said. This is a book, and I know it's been out for a while, Chris, and it's not the most recent work that you're working on, but I think the work is profound, because I think, and maybe there's a 2.0 version coming out. I don't know. But I will tell you, the people that I talk to, this is big. How do I get things done when I'm not motivated or I'm getting internal resistance? But you are working on some amazing current things as well, and I want to leave space for that. Before we close out our time together, Chris, I think it would add value to our listeners if you could tell us a little bit more about, I know you have a new ebook you're launching, the 10 Elevations for Thriving and Amplifying Good in Today's World, and I know that's your heart, but also maybe talk, and you've referenced it, but talk a little bit more about the Elevation Collective as well, if you would.
Oh, thank you, Jeff. So the Elevation Collective started during COVID, and I was starting to think, how do I make so this is the big vision, how do I make the most significant contribution to the world that I can with the knowledge and resources and connections that I have. And I realized that I couldn't do that on my own. And I thought, actually, like you, Jeff, I've met amazing people on this journey through the interviews. What would happen if I brought some of them together? And a first group formed, a bit like a mastermind group, but people said it was, for the masterminds they belonged to before, it was deeper and more connected. And they were all shocked at who was in the room. They all felt imposter syndrome initially, which is a requirement to be part of my community. You have to feel that because it means you're authentic and you don't have a big ego. So that has now emerged into this community called the Elevation Collective, and it's where exceptional people meet who are kind, who are heartfelt, and our focal point has become the amplification of good. So we want people's businesses and work to thrive, because you can't end poverty, for example, if you're in poverty. I know Mother Teresa tried, but it's very difficult. So we want to help people's lives sort of thrive and support them through that. But also we want to help them, like I mentioned the example with Shay, we want to help them to do good while they're here as well. So we have this beautiful community of people who meet in inner circles, who come together at different times, who meet annually face to face. So we had a beautiful event, our third annual one in Oxfordshire this year, at a beautiful medieval hotel. And people had lovely rooms, and we all got together, and we just had the most profound, deep conversations about how could we do good? How can we support each other with our different initiatives and projects? And the most remarkable things are happening. People, one of our groups, everybody's work is lifted and elevated during the year, and as the focus of the different ways that they're doing good and the ripples that's having in the world. Because today, small groups and communities, I think, who are doing good can have a profound difference. And what we need to do is be connecting those lights together, connecting one of my connections, called them fireflies, collecting those people with a glow, so that they in a community that actually supports that, inspires them, loves them, cares about them, and about their initiatives, because we need to evolve this world in a good way. I'm not convinced that some of our global leaders will are quite on the same agenda.
Right.
But we can do that at a smaller level.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Yeah, I think there's something to be said about community. This is the rising tide that lifts all ships, and I value you moderating that and pulling great people together, because the more like-minded people that we have together, the greater force of good that we can be in the world. And I know that's your message. Hey, before we close out, Chris, any final messages to our audience, and maybe tell us how the listener can connect with you?
Thank you. I think the thing is that you can achieve remarkable things in your life if you choose to, if you just put your mind to it. And I think being part of whatever the community is for you, of people who are out there doing good work, join communities to support yourself in it. But also just work some clarity about where you're heading. Just it could be an A4 bit of paper like I described at 28, and then just gradually work towards that. Little step by little step. If big steps seem too much, because actually what you want to do, you've got the gift of life right now. The world needs your help. It really does. It needs our support. It needs more love. It needs more connection. It needs lots of kindness to help solve work through some of these issues together. It needs more understanding and more listening, not more telling. If you can be part of that evolution and journey, not only will you make a bigger difference, but you will get more motivated. When you see a bigger picture, you'll feel excited about getting up each day, and you'll start to see those little awards. And I use something, and it's nothing to do with me. I found a book called Clever Fox, and what I use this every day to sort of track every week and month and year. I write my goals in there, and I review every month. I find that really helpful to put it down in writing, what I'm working towards, and just make little steps each day towards them. And I think if you do that exponentially, your contribution to the world will grow.
So good. I love the validation of the written goals. I have never is a strong word, but I think I can use it here. I've never met anybody that was amassing great levels of success that didn't have written goals. Yeah. And so thanks for affirming that as well, Chris. I think there's something powerful there. Yeah. What was the name of the journal, or what is it that you're using?
This one, I found this one. I'd actually had a couple of surgeries. I nearly died actually, and I was I was struggling to get my energy back, and I found this book online called Clever Fox, and I love these books. I've got by the A4 Premium one, and that has what I need in it. And it has lovely pages in there. It's just you can review on there's some on there. Let's see, calendar page look, and there's some.
I'm going to check that out.
There's also headings in sections in there to put your goals and put your vision and the things that are important, and to review monthly. And so I find that a helpful process with tracking and moving initiatives forward.
Love it. Love it. Sometimes you got to need an elephant one bite at a time, right?
Yeah.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that your health is better. I'm grateful for the work that you are doing in the world. You're certainly a light into many darkness and a lot of dark places. So, Chris, thank you for joining. Listen, your ability to help people take meaningful action, even when they don't feel like it. I mean, that is a gift to leaders everywhere. So we're grateful. Grateful for all the. Yeah, go ahead.
I want to say thank you to you because you're doing amazing work, and thoroughly enjoy being on the Champion Forum podcast. And it takes a lot to do this week in, week out, and I know you do that, and you contribute a lot to your clients. So I just want to say, full respect to you as well. You're doing amazing things. I got the chance to interview you. People can check that out, and I'm chriscooper.co.uk is my website. That's one way you can find out a little bit more what we're doing. But Jeff, sincerely, thank you. I really appreciate you.
My pleasure. It's great having you on, and thank you for making deposits into our listener. And look, the challenge to the listener, here it is. Don't let today's conversation that I had with Chris and the one that you listened to be something that you just simply nod your head and agree with. Choose one idea maybe that resonated with you and take action on it. Take action right now. There was some things that you could start doing right away, not tomorrow. Certainly not when you feel like it, as we talked about. Do it now, whether you feel like it or not, because the gap between where you are and where you want to be is often just one decisive step. Take the small actions. Take the step. Put something into motion. Build the structure. Make the commitment, but eliminate excuses. Leaders are not defined by what they intend to do. They're defined by what they actually do. So thank you all for joining us, and until next time, keep leading with purpose and keep turning the pressure into potential.
The Champion Forum podcast with Jeff Hancher. Lead, inspire, win.